All right, welcome everyone. Chris Petrie here. Let's get excited. We're going to do a beautiful harbor scene here. We're going to have fishing boats, fishing shacks, restaurants, boathouses. We're going to have a beautiful bridge here going across this waterway, this harbor. This is just a wonderful scene, totally in line with watercolor painting. And also, too, we're going to show you every step of the way the glazing technique. We're going to start with our lightest lights and work from there all the way to our darkest darks over here. So you'll see we have plenty of really light, beautiful washes, delicate washes in the distance with the sky and the water. And then we come consecutively on top of each other, darker and darker washes, going from medium washes in the distance to the darker washes here in the foreground. So you'll see how that all works. Something that, is like a great technique and method in watercolor, the glazing technique. A lot of watercolor artists use this. I'm sure you're using it yourself all the time. So I'm just going to be going over how I'm using it myself here, and we're just going to work together for the next hour or so. But this is a real fun painting to do. Lots of excitement in here, and let's get started. We'll begin with a pencil sketch, of course, and then we'll go over the colors we're going to use in the palette, and I'll have my palette on camera at all times, so you'll see all the color mixing and everything like that. So I'll have my standard palette at all times on camera, so you can see all the color mixing and the brushes I'm using and all that good stuff. All right, so we'll be right back. All right, let's get started now. We just saw the finished painting, and you can kind of see that to get the effects that we're going to want here in this painting, we're going to have to think about darks and lights, of course. So with our painting, we're going to use the glazing method, which is really a fantastic technique and method that most watercolor artists, are very professional watercolor artists, are used to and work with a lot. No different here. We're just going to sort of do our lighter washes first, and then we'll work on our darker washes after that. We'll let that dry, that first light wash that we do. So the first thing we'll do, though, is as we always do, let's do our pencil sketch. So I will just get a basic layout of things, and maybe on the left-hand side we're going to go a little bit below the halfway point. So if our halfway point for our paper is about here, we'll go a little bit lower than that, and we'll just make a little bit of like a mountain kind of hill over here, just along the water. And you can shade it in if you want, or pencil it in. That's fine. We're going to be approximating things, not so much really incredibly concerned with phenomenal accuracy or anything like that. And then we'll sort of go across here, maybe with our distant horizon line of the waterway. So we're thinking this is like the ocean inlet here, and we're going to have some boats, some interesting restaurants and boating shacks and fishing companies have their places of business here along the waterway. I don't think I'm going to get too incredibly detailed beyond this here for over on this side. So that'll be our distant water. Hopefully this, I'll go a little bit darker just so you can kind of see like that on the video. So I went a little bit darker, but you can see how that's about a third of the way. Approximately a third, a little bit higher than a third of the way up from the bottom of the paper. And I'll put a pencil line around my tape. And this is good. It's always good to have almost like a border around your paper, watercolor paper, so this way you're kind of seeing your definite boundaries of your papers, and you can work out to those borders and kind of everything sort of works around the borders of your painting as we're working. When we're doing our pencil drawing, of course, we're just concerned about, whatever I'm just doing this, kind of, I'm just creating this, I don't have a reference photo. So I'll have a little bit of a distant water here. And maybe we'll have something in the distance. Maybe there's a bridge over here in the distance, like this. Okay, so we can have a bridge in the distance here. And we'll go across the top of that with the top of the bridge. Like this. And then maybe over here, we'll start to see some of our buildings. And again, they don't have to be exacting. I'll maybe make a chimney on top of this roof here. And that will be a roof over here. This would be another building in the distance. This one here will be like so. And we're not going to get too worried about, again, we're not going to do a phenomenal amount of details on this. We're just going to kind of try to get ourselves a really nice shape of things coming across this paper with some ideas of like a boathouse here and another few buildings in the background over here that we're going to have, and then we'll have another bit of rooftop over here. So again, along the water, we'll have some kind of things like this, you know, just a little bit of details here, nothing too definite, like this. And then maybe there's some boats over here. And for this side of the picture, it's going to be mostly darks here. So if I shade these in, like you can see, I'm shading this in because this is going to be all really like darks. We'll have some maybe we'll put some windows in on these buildings, on some of the buildings here. So we will put some windows up here, just a couple windows up there. And maybe there's a couple windows over here as well, like this. Like this. So we'll do some windows over here, and this will be again the water, and then we're going to have the water will be the reflection of the sky, so we'll have that. We'll keep these darks, you know, so over here we're going to kind of make it mysterious, just darks, you know, pretending we're just having some boats over here. And then I would say maybe over here we'll have another bit of dark here, and then maybe we'll have a mast of a boat over here, about here, let's say. I'll make it just a tiny bit on a angle, like I'm not going to draw it perfectly plumb vertical. I'm going to have it just turn a little bit this way, just a tiny bit. And so we'll have a mast of the boat here. I'll make that one line, make another thicker line on the bottom here. It'll get thinner as it goes up. So it starts off thick and then it gets a little thinner. And then we'll have some more, you know, less detail here on the top. It's going to change a little bit. We'll have a little bit of and then we'll have some rigging coming down. So this we'll do later. Some rigging, some lines. Maybe we'll have a little bit of rigging up top here. I'll just do a couple light pencil lines just so I have, let's do those little, just a couple very, very light indications of pencil lines so that when we're doing our rigging later, we'll have somewhat of a guide of what we want to do. But this is pretty much it. I think we have a real fun, quick pencil drawing, nothing too fancy. And at this point, we'll take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll start painting. And again, the fun will be the painting portion here. We're going to have a lot of fun getting in the light wash first and then the darks over top. And this will just kind of showcase the glazing technique and the glazing method of light wash first, our sky. That reflects down into the water here. And then we go over top with our darker areas of our bridge here in the distance and our buildings in the distance over here. And so we're going to have all of these things, and we'll even have some more buildings over here in the far distance over here. So we'll make some distant buildings over here, like that, like this, and some more over here too as well. So maybe over here there's some more buildings over here. And we see them here. Those are in the far distance. And we can even put them here like so. And we can erase this line here. So we'll have this water kind of working its way through. And you can lighten up. I'm going to lighten up a few lines here. Like this, like that. A couple lines. I just lighten up a few lines before we start painting. All right, I'm going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll start with our sky wash and the first glazing across our paper. We'll try that out. We'll mix some paint too before we start ahead of time, and be back in a second or two. All right, so we're going to get ready to mix some paint and get started here. I like to use a larger brush to do the first wetting of the paper. I think that's really good to have that. Maybe just something that makes it a little easier to kind of just dampen your paper efficiently and kind of quickly. So we'll use this first. Flat brush, 30 millimeter Da Vinci flat brush. Any old flat brush will work. You have different kinds here. I think I have a synthetic one. They're both synthetic actually. This is synthetic, and also this one too. This is Princeton Art and Brush Company, makes great brushes. I have a lot of links down below for my supplies that I use, so you'll see all kinds of different brushes and paints and all the papers and everything down below. And so we'll get started with that with our light wash first. I start out always with a fresh crystal clear water here to get started. And I'll just take it and I'll take the brush and just do a light dampening of the paper. I wouldn't flood the paper out with a ton of water here. I would just put a damp, as if you're just putting a light coat of paint on here, like if you're painting something at home, a wall, some trim, a chair, if you're doing something like that at home, painting something, if you're doing some handiwork, if you like doing handiwork, maybe you've done some painting, just a light first coat, nothing too thick, like where it's, running off the paper or anything like that, just nice, cover it once. And that is it for that. Then we'll mix up a little bit of water while that just kind of seeps into the paper a little bit. And then for the sky wash, let's go with something like, let's use cerulean blue, a little bit of French ultramarine blue, a little bit of burnt umber in there, like that. So we're going to make sort of like a mellow grayish blue with the burnt umber in there, maybe a touch of orange, like that. Maybe over here we'll section off this area for that more of a brownish gold. We'll add some raw sienna too, maybe to that there. So we'll add a little bit of orange, just a tiny bit of cadmium orange and raw sienna over here. Then we can add in some more cobalt blue to that, just to give it a little bit of everything's got a blue tint to it, or color to it, a blue color, everything. And then you can sort of add a little more blue to here. So we're having we're mixing three different kind of colors, let's say. We have more of a blue with the French ultramarine blue, cobalt blue even. Let's add a little bit of our Prussian blue here. And I'll add that Prussian blue all the way through over here as well. And we'll just mix that up again. And then as we add that Prussian blue, we have to maybe gray everything down a little more with some more brown. And again, a little bit of gold over here and a little bit of orange, just to have a little more of a warmer kind of a wash there, but I think this is good. So the next thing I do is I, again, take some fresh clean water, and what I'll do is here on the top quarter of the paper, just the top up here, I'll add some more water now, some more like puddly type of water, like that, and that's it, just the top area like that. Then what I'll do is take these colors and just get them onto the paper, like this. Might need to be a little darker, so I go in, make it a little darker, French ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, burnt umber, Prussian blue. We want to get all those good colors in there. And again, do the same thing, only to the top area like this, like that. Then a little bit of the orangey mix like that across here. Then at this point you can take a tissue or paper towel. And what I like to do is maybe lighten up a little bit, like that. And then just take my brush here with a damp brush and get the lighter, like this. Just get the lighter bit of that blue all the way across here. And some of the gold too in the water. So you want to have some of that warm and cool. Some of the, you know, greenish gold. We have some gold in there. Water colors, the blue. And we just go right across. Very, you know, fun and free. We just want to coat the paper or give it a nice glazing of the color that we started off with on this in the sky. Of course, we're going over all these areas with darker darks, most of the areas anyway. The water will stay the light wash that we're doing right now, so that's will be fine. And you just make sure you cover everything pretty good so that you have that really nice harmonious color going all the way across the whole entire paper. And then if you want to, what happens is usually that with watercolor you almost have to, when you do your first glazing, your first wash, best to just do the first wash and then let it sit. Don't go back in and add any more water to it, because what happens is right now I want to make it darker up here on the top. I find I just want to get it a little bit darker up here, but I know from experience that if I was to mix up a little darker wash here and then try to go back in now and put it onto the paper, it's going to cause unpleasant looking marks on the paper. Like sometimes there'll be funny spots or blotches of water, and just it actually, watercolor is best if we just get it on there and then we can let it dry 100%, and then we can come back if we want. If we want to make this sky color darker, not a problem. We just come back once this is 100% dry, and then we'll do another darker bit of wash over the top of the sky up here maybe. And then, of course, we're going to be working on our subsequent washes here, the darker darks here of the buildings and so forth, and the water. We're going to have some interesting bits of interesting waves and little bits of things in the water, and we'll have, of course, the details of the boat and some things like that. So plenty of stuff to do, but again, the thing is, with the glazing technique is get that first wash on, start at the top, work our way down, go all the way across, and then we just let it be. And you can use a blow dryer if you want to at this point, and you dry off your paper. Your paper will start to just level out again, and it won't be as buckled. Right now the paper's quite buckled here. And so we have it taped. So when we tape our watercolors down like this, they'll go back to to a flat state. The paper will get back, but it has to dry. So that's the only thing, is we have to give it time to dry. So you could let it dry naturally for a couple hours or so, or you can use a blow dryer and maybe dry it off a little quicker than 10 minutes or whatever. But that's up to you. You can take your time letting it dry for a couple hours or so, or you can have a blow dryer and kind of get it done quicker. But in any case, let's get back to working once this dries. So I'm going to actually probably I'm going to use my blow dryer, I think, to dry this, but it's up to you how you want to do that. You're the artist. You'll figure out what's going to work for you. And okay, we'll get back to painting in just a second. All right, here we go again. Let's. I mentioned I wanted to go a little bit darker on the top here. So now that the paper is 100% dry, I'm going to actually do the same process. Take a little bit of water, and again, I'm going to wet the top of the paper with a fair amount, good amount of water here. And then mix up again some dark here. Not super dark, but French ultramarine blue, Prussian blue, cobalt blue. So I'll get a little bit of all those blues there. Brown and raw sienna. Actually, that's cerulean. I'm not sure I'm going to use that. I think I'll stick with the colors we used before anyway. Okay, so we have that. And there we go. It looks good. I'll just pick up that paint. Like that. And at this point, you could always get a little bit fancier if you'd like to, and add a little bit of the spritzer bottle, and just go right across that that edge that we just created, that darker edge, and that'll give a feeling of maybe some rain, a little bit of drizzle of rain in this scene, and that can look really good, especially with watercolor. Watercolor's kind of really works well with kind of rain and mist and fog and things like that. It's kind of a fun part of watercolor. And I just blot up a little bit of puddles if I see them. Just a tiny bit of puddles I'm seeing. I want to just lift a few of those puddles, but that looks pretty good. And what I'll do is I'll do a little bit of that. Just a tiny bit of that darker cloud. I reflect it down into the water, just a little bit, like that, but nothing too dramatic, just to get it in there and kind of balance it. And that should be fine. Again, now we have to do the same process. I know this is, sometimes watercolor takes a little bit of time, to get the results you want in your painting without going too quickly. So again, this is where we would let this dry 100%. So I'm going to actually use my blow dryer again and dry this all off. But you could certainly, especially if you're doing things like kind of making that misty feel with maybe a little bit of the spritzer bottle across that edge of the sky along here, that would probably, the wash would look better in the end result if you let it to dry naturally, because it'll slowly sink down into the paper, all of the water and the color. And it'll be just, it might have a little more of a transparent look to it. But you can also, again, if we're doing these paintings and this might not be your finished painting, you're just working on this to get like some ideas, and then maybe you'll do this painting again on a larger sheet of paper, or you'll do it again a couple times to practice it, and then you'll go in and do a finished painting. So if you're going to, let's say you want to frame it or put it in a gallery, or you're making it for a friend or something like that, or if you want to do something like that, then you can just remember it's a little more, it looks a little better if you let things dry naturally with the watercolor paper and the watercolor washes. But if we're just doing things here to practice, and we're here like, learning techniques and practicing up and everything like that, that's fine. You can use the blow dryer, you get everything all quickly done, and then you can just keep moving on to the next steps and so forth, and learn all of the, the steps and methods that we're using in the process, and you don't necessarily have to wait until it dries naturally. But again, if you're doing something really like where you're going to want to have it for like a gallery showing, or for a gift for somebody, or if you just want to have a really great painting for your house or your friends or somebody like that, you can take a little more time and let things dry naturally. All right, so we'll come right back, and I think next we're going to start getting into those really nice darks all the way across the painting with the buildings and the bridge and all that good stuff. All right, we'll be back in a couple seconds or so. All right, so we're just moving along here, and at this point, everything is 100% dry. The paper is, just completely dry all the way through and through. And what I'll do is maybe I'll just clean up the palette a little bit here. We kind of have a good fix on our colors that we were using to start the painting, so I think we're going to stick with the same colors we used in the beginning of the painting. We'll just use those colors as we go through to the final portions of the painting. So next, I would say let's try to get the next kind of middle tonal value. So we're going from light to dark, and we built up the sky color a little bit darker here. And also, too, always remember when you're doing like the glazing technique, you can always take more time and do more glazings, like additional glazings, and build up things slower. So I work at a pretty fast pace here on this painting. We're not really, let's say, doing 20 or 30 glazings. We're kind of doing like we did so far, I think 2 or 3 at most, up to this point, and we have maybe 2 or 3 more left to do. But you could take your time and actually build up more layers if you want to, and take your time going light to dark. So always remember that. You can change your mode of how you're approaching your glazing technique. You can add more layers. If you don't want to go too dark, let's say, you can add thinner layers and get darker and darker as you go, versus, obviously if we put a really dark wash on here, it's hard to kind of like lift up that wash once you put it on, right? So if you want to take your time a little more, you can always add more layers of glazing and take your time building up the light to the dark feel, so that by the end of the painting, maybe you'll have 20 layers, but your last layers are going to be your darkest darks. And, of course, our first layers and glazings were the lights. So we're just kind of working from that approach, light to dark. And now we'll just kind of continue on here. I'll get some more French ultramarine blue, cobalt blue. We're going to have some Prussian blue. So we're using all the blues here that we had in the beginning. And then we had the burnt umber to neutralize the blues a little bit, right? And then we had some yellow. We had some raw sienna, some gold. So you can kind of mix these washes up a little bit ahead of time, right, as we're going. And then now I added a little bit of water to that. So I took my brush and just added a little bit of water to this to make it a little thinner. And what we'll do now is we'll try to start working on the next sort of distance colors. And I think we can do this. I think we can start to do this here, and you can kind of see it's kind of a cooler, right? I have more blue in there than anything else. Always remember, as we say, the distant colors that are far in the distance are going to be cool, like the bluer colors, the greenish blue colors. Purple works too. And you can also, you could paint in this bridge here. So what I'll do is I'll start getting in that wash for the bridge here, and right into this hill over here that comes down, because it's lighter, and we can go over with, we're going to go over with a darker wash. And here we go with another bit of wash here. So that's another few bit of buildings over here, like this, right? And as you see, you can go right into the buildings over here. These are going to be darker, these buildings, because they're closer to us in the foreground. And these buildings back here, these are in the distance, so these are cooler. You can always take a little bit of water, a damp brush with a little bit of water, and put a little bit of water on those buildings in the distance and maybe blot up a little bit if you want to get a little bit of a kind of a misty feel back there. Maybe there's some like that. So that works really nicely. A little bit of water. And, you know, you could take this same wash and start to build layers. And I would say this works good because you can kind of go around your windows like this. And this way you're kind of like preparing for your next darker washes for the buildings over here. The fishing shacks and the boat houses and things like this, right? And the businesses and homes and things over here along the along this beautiful scene here. We have the feeling of the harbor. So we're in a harbor here, and we've got lots of exciting information here that we're painting in. And so you can, again, you know, go with some lighter washes here just to kind of set things up for yourself. So right now what I'm thinking is let me paint around my windows so I can leave some of these windows with light in them, so we can pretend that this is maybe early morning or maybe toward sundown, you know, in the evening around sunset time. So we can leave some lights and things here and there. So that's why I'm going to do that. I'm going to kind of block them out, block around them. So now I've kind of blocked around my windows so that when I come over with my darker washes on top of this one, I'll already know, wow, yeah, I got to save those lights for those windows. I don't want to go over those with a darker wash. And so this is all going to be really darks over here that we're doing now, but it's okay to do this light wash over that whole area, this whole area where the buildings are. Because again, it's sort of like I'm preparing myself for when we go over with those darker washes. And then maybe even over here too, where the boats are. Some of the boats over here. You know, this is going to be really dark over here, but we can get some, block in some more wash, some lighter wash, just like this. And I might even change up some of the shapes over here too. I don't know if I took my time enough to do some convincing shapes of boats over here. I think I kind of rushed a little bit when I was doing my pencil drawing. So that's one thing with watercolor. You can always paint over areas. And so if you drew something in that you didn't like, you just paint right over it. So we'll paint some new boat shapes over here, possibly. We'll see how it goes. But so now you can kind of see what we've done here. And then I'm just going to paint in a little bit of the mast of this boat here, kind of carefully. A little bit easier up here because I can just rest my hand right up here on this dry paper and just do a quick little bit of wash there. And again, I don't mind some splashing, so I'll do a few bits of splashing here and there. Adds texture to everything, makes everything look like it's got interesting things going on. And if you don't like a few splashes you may have made, you can easily just take a clean tissue and blot up a few, you know, no problem. Most times they come up and you can't even really see them, especially once they dry. Because we always know when watercolor dries, it dries like almost half of the value that you actually, when you're painting it. So watercolor dries a significant amount. Once you put it on, it dries quite a bit lighter than what when you're putting it onto the paper. But there we go. We have that nice lighter wash going over the whole entire area of this hill over here. This sort of like mountainous hill coming down, and over here, of course, with the bridge, and then the buildings and the fishing shacks and buildings and homes where the fishermen live, and people have businesses and restaurants and all kinds of cool stuff over here. Got all kinds of interesting things happening, and we're not sure if it's maybe early morning or toward the evening time, but we're not worried about that. We're just kind of noticing that it is, a little bit, the light is not as bright. So this is not, let's say, a bright sunny day in this scene. This is more like clouds, a little bit of mist, maybe some overcast, a little bit of rain showers here. We created some of that really darker clouds in the sky. So we're having a great time here. Let's continue on with this fun. And what I'll do is we'll let this dry. Again, you can use a blow dryer if you want to, speed up the process. And we'll come back and we'll start getting in some more darks. Alright, sometimes I wonder, let me know in the comments section if you write down the colors that we're using when you're creating your paintings and we're working on these paintings together. I'm not sure if you write them down or if you just have them memorized. A lot of you, I'm sure, have your palettes memorized, your colors memorized, and you might have like your own specific colors that you use on a regular basis that are similar to mine. But I figured I would just jot down my colors one time here on this, and you let me know if this is helpful, because I could always write this down when I'm creating my paintings to make it easier, so that you know what colors I'm going to be using for the painting. But really, essentially, we used the same colors all the way from the start of this painting up to this point. We didn't change anything really, and if we do ever change anything, we always say we'll just add a little bit of everything, or add a color if we added a color. Let's say I added a little bit of alizarin crimson to this painting. What I would do is I would take that alizarin crimson and add a tiny bit of it here and there and everywhere in the painting. If I decided I wanted to add some in once we've already started the painting and we're kind of a good way through it, you know what I mean? So that we have that harmony to the painting. Maybe we'll just try that as a fun experiment as we go here, adding some alizarin crimson to this painting. But in essence, what I wanted to do is just, if this is helpful, let me know in the comment section, or let me know in the comment section if you actually do jot down your colors when we're starting out our videos, or you don't need to. You actually have your colors memorized and you just go by your feel of your own palette. But we talked about the colors we used here pretty much. We'll start with like the darkest colors, right? So that's French ultramarine blue. We did some of that. Cobalt blue. We used Prussian blue, and then we used burnt umber to kind of neutralize some of that blue. Grade that blue down a little bit with that, and then we used some raw sienna, some of the gold, to warm up our blue colors, so that we have some warm and cool all the time. Kind of, a play of warm and cool always in our paintings. What else did we use? I think that was it. I think those are that's actually the basic colors we were using so far. French ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, Prussian blue, burnt umber, raw sienna, and then let's add some alizarin crimson too as well. And that could be maybe some nice feeling of more warmth in the painting. Right now it's quite cool. You can see these are kind of quite cool colors. We did have some raw sienna, which is a warm color. So even if we wanted to, you could always, just as a, so this is the idea of, I'm going to write down my colors so you can kind of see the colors in my palette that I'm using so far. So that's it. So we'll continue with all of these colors, and again, we're going to add in alizarin crimson. So right now what I'll do is, let's do that. Let's take a little bit of alizarin crimson, and I'll use maybe a nice flat brush here. I have my Princeton Art and Brush Company flat brush, synthetic brush. I'll make sure this water right now in my water container is kind of murky looking. Let's empty that out and start with some more fresh, clean color, fresh crystal clear water. And you'll notice that there is sediment at the bottom of that, so I'll put a little bit of water in there first. Then I take a brush and just kind of gently take my water bucket here, my water pail, and just, get that sediment off the bottom. And then I dump that out in my larger water pail. I have like a bucket. And then more fresh, clean water. That's the key right now, is having extremely crystal clear water, a little bit of alizarin crimson like this. And then what I'm going to try to do is take this and let's just add a tiny bit of it like this, very lightly, here and there. And it doesn't have to be a lot. You can even have it so that you barely can see it, but it will show through. When you're done with the painting, it'll be your eyesight will pick that up and say, "Ooh, yeah, there's a little bit of that alizarin crimson in there." You'll see it just a little bit, but you just put a little tiny bit of it. Not a lot though, and you don't have to put it everywhere, just here and there, right? So I have a damp brush. I rinse off my brush, have a damp brush, and then just pick up ever so slight amounts of it here and there. It actually acts as really like a kind of a nice. And then over here we add it to the buildings, even though we're going with a really dark over these buildings. So you really won't see too much of this alizarin crimson on the buildings. You will see some here though, in the sky. So I'll put some there in the sky. I'll put some in the water. If I have it in the sky, it's got to be reflected down in the water. I put some in the water here, but just ever so slight. Can you kind of see that? How you might? I don't know if you can see that in the video camera. Sometimes, when we create videos here on YouTube, sometimes there's subtle things you can't really see when we're painting on camera like this. But I have added some of that alizarin crimson pretty much in the water too as well, and in the sky, and also here in the foreground in this area here. And I think that'll be nice. It'll kind of add a little bit of warmth to the painting. Okay, all right, perfect. All right, looking good. Okay, let's take another quick break. We should let this all dry now again so that everything is 100% dry before we come back and add our next glazing over top, which is going to be even a next darker wash. So we're building everything from light to dark. We start out, of course, when we're doing creating our buildings and things like this, these buildings in the distance, they're lighter, obviously. And then as we come forward closer to us, these are all going to be much darker. So we'll start working on these buildings next. We're having a fun time here. Stick with me here. I hope you'll subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet to my channel, I'm really hoping you'll do that. This way you stay in contact with us all the time and you'll see the new videos we're creating, new paintings. We do all kinds of subject matter here. So I'm doing seascapes, landscapes, boat paintings, things like this, harbor scenes. We do also landscapes and house paintings of houses and buildings and city scenes, and we do a little bit of figure painting and portrait painting too occasionally, and flower paintings, still life paintings. So we're doing everything watercolor here on this channel. Don't miss a thing. Just stick with us, keep working with us, and if you keep working on everything, I know sometimes sometimes you'll have a favorite subject that you like to do, you like to create, but try everything. Try to work on all things as much as possible. Push yourself to do that, because it actually will just help you to build your skills as a watercolor artist even more. I know myself sometimes, even when I first started painting watercolor, there were certain things I didn't like to do too much, and I shied away from doing them. But then I realized that I should just try to keep doing a little bit of everything. And then sure enough, after some time, I realized, wow, yeah, some of the things I didn't like to do in the beginning, I sort of enjoyed it, and I just pushed myself to get through that block of like thinking, oh, it's too difficult, or I can't do a good job at it, whatever else, something like that, So just remember, stick with us here, keep working with whatever you can. And of course, I know many of you have very busy schedules, so you can't always paint with us every week or whatever, but no big deal. Paint what you like to paint mostly. That's the thing. That's important too. Paint mostly what you like to paint more often than not, but do try to work in some other things that you maybe aren't your favorites, but you like to try to kind of work in some of those things that will challenge your skills and help you to grow a little bit more. Okay, all right. We're going to come back after this dries, and it takes a little while, so I think I'm going to use the blow dryer. This way I can come back in like 5 minutes. All Right, and we're just continuing right along here. I'll probably try to clean up my palette a little bit here and there, like that, just a little bit. And at this point too, you can always use some flat brushes if you want to. When we're painting buildings and things like that, flat brushes tend to work really fantastic. But you can use a round brush too if you like working with round brushes. There's no need to, work with a brush you're not comfortable with. I tend to like flat brushes too, but I mostly work with round brushes. And so we have different, varieties here of rounds and flats here. So these, this brush here we used in the beginning of the painting, that was the number 10 round brush, and that's more for the larger washes. Now we're getting down to some more, we probably could still use this over here. So the 10 is still going to be something we're going to use. And then we have a finer brush here, number 3, round brush, that's got a good point. So we'll be able to use this too for some finer details. So, kind of a mixture of brushes, but nothing too large. Everything kind of fits the painting nicely. So we'll leave these over here, and maybe we'll use our flat brush here, and we'll kind of get some more darks for our buildings. Let's see how we can start to mix up some burnt umber. And since we're going to burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, Prussian blue. So I'm just mixing them all together. Some cobalt blue as well as some raw sienna. So I'm just using all the same colors we used before. And you can kind of section off some areas. So maybe the raw sienna you can leave over here on this side. Kind of that warmer feel. You can add some now if you dip in by accident and you pick up some color that you didn't mean to, better off. That happened to me. I just noticed that. No problem. I'm going to take a paper towel, a damp paper towel, and clean that out of my palette because I didn't use that cadmium yellow before in the painting, so I don't want to have cadmium yellow now in my painting in a sense because I haven't used it before. We haven't used it before, so that's where I rinse out my brush really good in the water container. And then again, I would, start mixing out some yellow, raw sienna, gold color, just to have that in there. And then just, let's see how this looks. We'll start to and again, architecture, these flat brushes work great with architecture. And you don't have to worry if you paint over a window or something like that. You can quickly use a tissue or paper towel and kind of, if you go over a window by accident, you can just lift up quickly like that. Okay, that didn't work. It's kind of dark there. So I wouldn't worry about that. I would paint over it then. Like that. And then over here, this is pretty much the same, it's almost the same amount of darkness of that building. I would leave a little bit of highlights maybe on this side of the building over here. Some burnt umber. So you can always add in some darker colors if you want. But this is just the fun of it. We're getting in our dark washes now. Like this. And you can notice there's hardly any water now in the palette. It's mostly all straight paint because these are dark darks. We can't be flooding our palette out with water. If we want to have dark tones in our paintings, we have to scale back on the water amounts that we put into the palette and in the paint mixtures. So that's why I'm just going with the maybe I'll go a little bit lighter. So here I do add a little bit of water to that. Maybe the roof's going to be a little lighter, like this. Over here. So I can make this roof a little bit lighter. You can also leave a building a little bit lighter. Or you can just stick to the game plan and keep these all pretty much dark. I think we'll just do that. Pick up some more darks here. Again, I went over a window there, no big deal. If you paint over a window, just paint over it and don't worry about it. That's what I say. Don't worry about it. It's just a watercolor painting. Okay, there we go. Look at that. Looks good. Now, let's keep working I would say I'm going to hold off right here with this section. Okay, I'm going to hold off right there, leave that the way it is. Maybe I'll add a little bit of burnt umber here. Maybe I'll add a little bit of this to the roof over here, like that. Like that. A little bit of dark for the chimney over here. Same up here, a little bit of dark for the chimneys over here. And then little bits of marks and stuff here and there. So you can have little bits of information. It doesn't have to, everything doesn't have to be the way we, you know, if we didn't draw something into this picture when we did our drawing to start with, you could still add things with your brush. Always remember that. When you're, you know, you're the artist, you're in control of your artwork at all times. If you just want to use your brush and add things in that you haven't drawn in with a pencil, that's fine. You can do that. That's actually very common. It's a common thing to do. And we can make some window panes with our flat brush like this. That. Okay, and that is looking good. Now I'm going to work with my round brush on the bridge over here, going in with the same colors: French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, Prussian blue. Okay, Prussian blue, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue. A little bit of raw sienna over here. And let's start to get our bridge in here. I would go around that. I would try to leave that mast, if we can leave that mast there of the boat in the foreground. I would leave that if we can. I mean, we could go darker. We'll paint through it. Okay, now what we can do is add a little bit of fresh clean water, and then we can take a tissue and blot up a little bit of, like that. What that can do is give a little bit of variety to the bridge so that it doesn't look too stagnant looking or static looking, you know. Add a little bit of variety to it. Maybe a couple markings, maybe there's some vertical lines on there a little bit here and there. Maybe a little bit of interesting architectural features, maybe some stonework, so on and so forth, but that's the fun of watercolor. I will do the same thing over here. I'll do the same thing, blot up some of it over here like that. And then over here, a little bit of burnt umber, a little more burnt umber here. Okay, let's leave a little bit of the lighter behind there. A little bit of splashing never hurt to sort of okay, just add a little bit of splashing just to loosen up a little bit, add a little bit of texture. You can always blot up a few of those splashes here and there. Okay. And as you can see, we're just building up layers of darker and darker washes on top of the lighter washes we started with, and that's it. That's the simple beauty of glazing and the glazing technique. And I also want to mention that I have that in my book in detail, my book down below in the comment section below. I have a quick 2-minute video. It shows you all of the paintings in my book. I have over 60 paintings in my book, and they're either created in the glazing technique, which we're doing here, or they're in alla prima technique, which is when you just start your painting at one time in one place with some of the darkest darks in your painting, and you paint everything from there all the way through and finish your painting. So I use basically those two methods, the glazing technique and alla prima. I cover it in detail in my book, and I have, like I said, over 60 paintings in that my book that actually cover all of the details. So it's a great bargain. And it'll really give you years and years of fun, because you can work on those paintings that I have in there and paint those over and over again and work on them, and it'll be a lot of fun for you. And you kind of see how the glazing and the alla prima techniques in watercolor work to a high level. And so right now we look like we are coming along really nicely here. A little bit of a warmer feel there with some burnt umber mixed into that wash, and you can add some more details to your distant. There's some more distant bits here too as well that we see, like that, and over here as well. That might be a pier there that comes out a little bit. You can blot it up a little bit, make it lighter like that. Even make it lighter yet. All right, let's take another quick break. I like to take breaks often, as you know. So now I'm going to just take a 5-minute break and think about what my next washes are going to be. And I think we're going to do the boats over here on the right-hand side here. So these are all going to be really, really dark darks. And I'm not going to get into a lot of detail with them. We'll just put in block in some really good darks here. The main focal point is really going to be like the bridge and these fishing shacks here and boathouses and things, and some of the restaurants and things that are along this beautiful harbor scene. So that'll be our focal point really, and we'll have some nice detail too on this boat in the foreground, but that's not really going to be this is more or less the bridge going through, and these buildings are really the kind of the focal point and the most interesting parts of the painting. So let's stick with that idea, come back, we'll get in some of our boats here in the foreground. Again, we're not going to make those the star of the show. We're going to make these kind of played down a little bit, just have some shapes in here, boat shapes. And when we were away on one of the breaks, I did kind of pencil in a little bit better boat shape here. So I kind of made like a nice bow of a boat here and made it a little more. I think when I started out the painting, I think when I drew that first bit of lines into the drawing, I didn't think of it too much as far as getting it really looking the way I wanted to. So that's where you can always come back and, you know, do some fixing up, and you're fine. Looks good, and we'll come right back. Alright, so now we're just going to keep working with our dark glazings. Of course, we're building up light to dark, so we're just going to continue with lots of darks. Prussian blue, French ultramarine blue, burnt umber. Yes, we're going to have lots of darks. A little bit of cobalt blue as well. Then we're going to rinse off the brush. Pick up some of that yellow. Let's put gold, raw sienna. Got to have some of that warm and cool working all the time in our paintings. And now that we have that, I might start over here now. Let's get some of these darks in. I think I'll need a little more burnt umber and some more French ultramarine blue and French ultramarine blue, Prussian blue, burnt umber. You can even go with a little bit of the alizarin crimson too. And what I'll do is I'll start here, and this is going to be our bow of our boat. And then here you're just going to see, I'm just going to get these, blocking these shapes of a bow of a boat here. I'm not going to get more involved than just having that one shape of the, like that. Then you can put in a little bit of detail like this. You know, pretend we're a boat maker and we know what we're doing. And then another bit of dark down here too. We have this other fishing boat down here with the mast coming up. So again, I'm not going to get too concerned with much more detail than that. That's fine. Just a little bit of that dark down there. And then over here, more bit of another boat here. Like that. Pick up plenty of darks. We come over here. We leave some of those lights on top of that boat. Like that. A couple of lines over here and there. Maybe some little bits of information. Doesn't have to be anything that we can go like this, like that. Now, what we'll do is let's take some tape and we'll see if we can do a quick, fun way to get a couple really nice straight lines. Take some artist tape, some drafting tape that's not going to really stick to your paper all that much, like that. And then another piece on the other side, so you can get some really good straight lines with a little bit of tape, like that. Okay, a little bit of drafting tape like this. A little burnt umber. And then this here starts about there, the dark starts about there, and then we just go right down like this. Like that. There we go. Now you have a perfect straight mast, like that. And then if you want to do the same thing, you can take a little bit of smaller bit of tape. You don't have to use as much tape at this point, and you can just do the same thing up here to get this other smaller section, like this. What I'll do is I'll just start this over here. I don't want to get dipped into that other paint we just put down, but we could do that like this. Like this. And it's just a matter of taking your brush and doing this. So this drafting tape is really fantastic. You can use it really quick and easy like this and get yourself perfectly straight masts, you know. You can do the same thing over here. A couple of these. There we go. So you can start off with some really good, strong lines that are really straight and accurate. And we have some good, straight, accurate lines over here. We actually, when we were creating these restaurants and fishing, the boathouses and fishing shacks and things like this, we use the flat brush, and you can see just by its nature the flat brushes have beautiful straight lines on them. So we got a lot of straight, good, really straight lines over here. So that would work out perfect with using some tape and getting some really sharp, straight, really crisp, accurate lines. Accuracy is over here, so if you put some accurate, really accurate looking straight lines over here, it's going to match nicely. It's just kind of how it works, you know. If you have some accuracy with straight lines when you're using a flat brush like this, that works the same way with using some tape, some artist tape, and, you know, getting some straight lines on here. And then we'll use some other fun lines with our other brushes to do some rigging lines on the boats and things. But let's just keep working with this. The darker darks now in the foreground here, we have that looking really good. I'm thinking we're getting there. We're really actually looking pretty good here. Let me take another quick break. This way I can just step back, take a break. My concentration level gets a little better if I take a break for 5-10 minutes. Then when I come back and I walk up to my table here, I'll look at everything and just say, what do I want to do now to finish the painting? And we'll kind of look at it that way. Maybe I'll have a couple new ideas that I want to implement on this composition, or maybe not. Maybe I just want to leave it real simple, but we'll see what I can kind of think about when I come back. And so see you in a second. All right, coming back, I always again have a little bit of time just to take a break and then come back. I look, I say, you know what, we'll add some more vertical lines in here with a few more masts. So I'm going to try to see if I can get a mast going about right here. I'll try to keep this one pretty vertical. I want to keep it about maybe right there is okay. Maybe do I want to go here? I'm not sure. I think I'll go there. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to do one there. This one will be pretty thick. Okay, because this is like, this boat's in the foreground, so this mast on this boat here, it's going to be dark. It's going to be kind of so we're going to work the same plan. French ultramarine blue, Prussian blue, lots of burnt umber, a little bit of alizarin crimson, rinse off the brush, a little bit of alizarin crimson over here, and then some raw sienna. Okay, just so I have some more of the same colors we've been using the entire time. We're just going to keep going with that idea, making sure we mix all the colors together. And then we'll get some more here on this. The mast maybe more of a wood feel, so we'll have more of that brown in there. But this is kind of simple. We're just going to go right here. Start right there with pretty much just straight paint, no water. I don't think there's hardly any water in this. And just paint right between the tape, the drafting tape, artist tape, like that. You can always do a couple little blots of tissue, maybe to give a little bit of texture to it. And then let's see how that looks. Yeah, that looks good. So now we're starting to build up some vertical lines. So let's sort of, my idea was let's work a lot of vertical lines in this painting. That can really kind of be the dominant force in this painting right now. This composition is using vertical lines, so we already have two strong verticals here. Let's keep with that same idea. I would use fresh tape each time. I wouldn't try to reuse your tape because that could cause problems. So we have this mast here of this boat. Right here. This one would be over to this side, so I wouldn't add one for there. But then let's take a smaller brush and let's get in some other boats over here. So I'm just going to put in some smaller boats over here. Just some shapes of boats. Doesn't have to be perfect. I would do maybe some piers. And some pilings. Like that. Some piers and pilings, things like that. These verticals are really going to look good. And then let's kind of, since we have some of those, we could add some, we'll try a few more verticals over here. Okay, these over here, I think we don't even need the tape. Let's just kind of, you could always have yourself a dowel. These are like wood dowels you can buy at the hardware store or in your big box stores, but these dowels are really good. You can rest them down on your paper, on your pad, on your working table, and then you can rest your hand on the top. Actually, the paint's dry over here, so I don't even need to use that. Pretty much my paint's pretty much dry throughout here, so I can just make some verticals here like this. Like this. Okay, there's some boats over here. So I'm just going to make some more verticals like that. That looks good. We could even take a little bit of titanium white like this. Some titanium white and just do a couple really light lines like this. Like that. So now we're building in some of those vertical lines. And I'm trying to keep things neat here. My white, titanium white is kind of so I'll add a little bit of that titanium white right here with a little bit of the yellow, raw sienna, gold, and a little more titanium white there. Okay. And I got quite a bit of some messiness here, but we'll work with it. Okay. And you can do a little bit of couple of highlights here and there. You can add some highlights to some of these masts over here. You could get a couple of highlights there, maybe a highlight up here on top of the chimneys up here. Okay, maybe a little bit of highlight here on the roof, on the ridge of the roof here, like that. Okay, so there's some light bouncing around in the scene here. You could get a few things with some highlights. Like that. Okay, looking good. All right, so we're moving right along here. We're getting in the last bits of our darks. I think we could actually work on some water movement in the water. So what I'll do is in the foreground here, I would do a little bit of water reflect, like a little bit of the, just take a little bit of the, take your brush and pretend you're like this. That's all it is. The water, how the water just, like that. I think that's good. I think that kind of gives us the feel of water a little bit there. Then I even take a little bit of splashing, like that. And then we'll do a little more, couple of lines here and there, some reflections under the bridge here. I guess that would be like a shadow of the bridge underneath on the water. And a few more little lines. I think that might be good there. And I think we're getting pretty much good. We're almost finished here. I would say I will take some more water. I will use my needlepoint brush here, dry off a little bit of the paint on here like this, and maybe I'll start to just get a few rigging lines here, like this, like that, like this, like that. And these go a long way if you just do a few, not that many. And I think that's it. I think that's perfect. We have all the bases covered here. We've got our lightest lights in the sky here in the distance. And then we slowly built up everything from light to dark. We got some really good details, some nice strong vertical lines with our masts, which I think really look good. Kind of anchors the whole painting together. And then, of course, we just did a lot of nice detail to things here in the buildings. I think maybe we could add one more thing, I believe. I'm going to take my raw sienna, so I'll take another bit of paper towel and I'll just clean up a section on my palette. So I always like to do this toward the end of the painting. Look at it and just say, can I add something to it that's going to look a little better? I change out my water right now at this point, so I have fresh, clean water again. I'll dip my paper towel in the water container and just clean out a section over here. Like this. And what I'll do next is a little bit of raw sienna here. Just like this. And maybe we're going to have some light in the, and even some alizarin crimson. That looks good. A bit of light in the windows here. A little more raw sienna here. And again, we could put a little bit of raw sienna in a few places in the painting just to... But that looks fine. If we wanted to, we could take a little more... We could take a little more white. And there might be a little bit of... maybe it's a little bit cool out and there's a little fireplace going down back here somewhere. So we can have a little bit of some smoke here. So you could put some smoke in a few of the chimneys if you wanted to. And I just tap a little bit of water on there just to give it a little... All right, I think that's complete. Maybe we could just put a signature on here. And we are completed. All right, we'll see you on the next video. Thanks again for watching and working along with us. We're having a fantastic time. I always mention, please subscribe. This way you don't miss a thing. We're always working together every weekend, during the week, weekends. We're probably creating 2 to 3 videos every week, so you'll have a great time working along with us. And happy painting, everyone. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.